Hello and welcome to Starbound's second channel. My name is Gabriel the Bibi Capaldi and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please do check down below that you are subscribed to the channel. It's 100% free and helps us pop up on your feed a bit more often. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, thousands of species had evolved specialized traits. The Arcturi with their silicon-based neural networks, the intelligence of the Vordar Collective, the hive mind of the Zarix drones. Yet when the diplomatic overtures failed and conflict erupted across star systems, it wasn't these ancient civilizations that struck fear into the hearts of aggressors. It was three species, all originating from one unassuming blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. Humans, with their unpredictable behavior, the Qatari, with their merciless nature, the Lupiri, with their unwavering pack loyalty, all from Earth. All nightmares made flesh for those foolish enough to provoke them. Gorok strained against his restraints, the energy cuffs biting into his leathery wrists. His tusks scraped against each other as he ground his teeth in frustration. The interrogation room, if that's truly what it was, seemed designed to disorient him. The walls shifted subtly in color depending on where he focused his gaze, and the floor's nearly imperceptible patterns made his head swim if he stared downward too long. A seam appeared in the previously seamless wall, and through it glided his captor. The blue-skinned Lodarian moved with the fluid grace that Gorok had always found nauseating. So proud of their evolved elegance, these council enforcers, with their elongated limbs and those unsettling eyes that seemed to see more than they should. "Comfortable?" The Lodarian's voice carried that melodic undertone all of his kind possessed.
"Release me, and I'll show you how comfortable I can make you, Lodarian."
Gorok flexed his considerable muscles, causing the restraints to glow with renewed energy in response. "My name is Ether, and you will find that cooperation will make this process considerably less unpleasant." The blue-skinned figure settled into the chair opposite Gorok. The seat was noticeably higher than Gorok's, a power dynamic that wasn't lost on the captive warrior. Ether tapped a control on the table between them, bringing up a holographic display of a battlecruiser. Gorok recognized it immediately, the Skull Splitter, his clan's prize vessel. "Impressive, particularly the modifications you've made to the propulsion system. Stolen Arcturi technology, if I'm not mistaken." Ethar's fingers traced the outline of the ship's engines with clinical precision. A grin spread across Gorok's face, revealing rows of pointed teeth.
"The Arcturi screamed beautifully when we took it, just like the humans will scream when we take their weapon systems."
Ethar's expression remained unchanged, his blue eyes reflecting the holographic display. 57 documented raid attempts have been made on Earth in the last galactic standard decade. Would you care to guess how many were successful?"
"We will be the first. The glory will be..."
"0, Gorok." Ethar's voice cut through his boast like a plasma blade. "The answer is 0. And do you know why?" Gorok huffed, his red eyes narrowing.
"Because they've been fortunate. Fortune eventually runs dry."
"Not fortune. Design." Ether dismissed the ship hologram with a flick of his wrist and activated the large flat screen embedded in the wall behind him. It displayed the Galactic Council emblem, a spiral galaxy with 12 stars arranged in a circle around it. "What you fail to understand is that Earth is not merely another world to raid. It is the home of not one, but 3 of the most formidable species in the galaxy." Gorok laughed, a harsh barking sound that echoed in the small room.
"Humans? Formidable? Have you seen them? Soft skin, no natural armor, dull teeth, rounded nails instead of claws."
He shook his head.
If they've repelled attacks, it's through trickery, not strength.
Ether sighed, the first sign of emotional response Garrock had observed.
Trickery, as you call it, is precisely why they are dangerous. But humans are merely the third most dangerous species from Earth.
Impossible.
The screen behind Ether changed, displaying footage of what appeared to be a military exercise. Small, live figures moved with impossible speed through an obstacle course. With their furred bipedal forms, their movements were precise, economical, lethal.
"Observe the cattery,"
Ethar said, his voice taking on a lecturing tone.
"Evolved from creatures humans once kept as companions. Usually small in stature, but possessing perfect memory of every slight, every injury. They have been known to track enemies across decades, waiting for the perfect moment to strike."
Garrock watched as one of the creatures, covered in short fur with pointed ears and vertical slit pupils, dismantled a combat drone with surgical precision. Its movements were almost too fast to follow, their bodies almost liquid.
Such strange creatures,
Garrock murmured.
"The Zrath Empire once killed one of them, a single male."
Ether's voice had dropped to a near whisper.
3 generations later, there is no Zrath Empire. The Cattery remember everything, Garrock, and they would remember your clan if you invaded Earth.
A chill ran down Garrock's spine, but he suppressed it quickly. No warrior showed fear, especially not a clan leader.
And then there are the Lupiri.
The screen changed again, showing much larger creatures than the Qatari. These moved in coordinated groups. Their communications seemed instantaneous as they executed complex maneuvers.
Evolved from pack hunters and called dogs by humanity, the Lupiri possess the most sophisticated battlefield communication network ever documented. They coordinate across vast distances without detectable signals. Their loyalty to allies is absolute, and their pursuit of enemies—
Ether paused, letting Garrock absorb the footage of a Lupiri pack systematically cornering and neutralizing a numerically superior force.
"Relentless would be an understatement."
Garrock shifted in his seat, the restraints adjusting automatically to his movements.
And humans? You said they're only the third most dangerous.
"Indeed."
Ether nodded, seeming pleased at Garrock's question.
"Humans are, perhaps, the most unpredictable. Neither as merciless as the Qatari, nor as coordinated as the Lupiri, and they don't specialize in anything. They can shift from diplomacy to warfare, and back again with disconcerting ease."
The screen now showed human military formations, their varied tactics and weapons on display.
"But what makes them truly dangerous is how they function in concert with the species they uplifted. In isolation, each is formidable. Together—"
Ether let the implication hang in the air as the screen displayed footage of all 3 species working in coordinated operations. Garrock leaned forward as much as his restraints would allow.
You expect me to believe 3 apex predators evolved on the same planet? Nature doesn't work that way.
For the first time, a hint of a smile played across Ethar's face.
"You're right. Nature doesn't. But the Galactic Council's uplifting program was never particularly concerned with natural evolutionary patterns."
Uplifting?
Garrock's brow furrowed deeply.
You mean to tell me that the Council created these combinations?
"Not exactly."
Ethar's ears swayed gently as he adjusted his position.
"The Council accelerated a process that humans had already begun. That's what made Earth unique. And what made the Council's decision so controversial?
Garrock snorted.
My people have superior strength, natural armor, and a warrior culture spanning 10,000 cycles. We have raided worlds across 3 spiral arms. These pets do not concern me.
Ethar's golden eyes locked onto Garrock's red ones.
The Minovi Collective once shared your confidence. They had natural armor that could repel energy weapons. They had a warrior culture dating back 20,000 cycles. They had raid patterns that had proven successful across 4 galactic sectors.
The screen changed again, showing the devastation of what must have been the Minovi homeworld. Garrock recognized the architectural style, similar to images he had studied in planning his own clan's raids.
This was 3 standard years after their attempted raid on Earth. The Qatari took their time. They always do.
Ethar's voice had taken on a disturbing softness.
The Lupiri would have been more direct. Humans might have accepted surrender. The Qatari...
He shook his head.
They enjoy the hunt.
For the first time since his capture, Garrock felt the stirrings of genuine uncertainty. Not fear, never fear, but a tactical reassessment. If what the Lodarian said was true...
Perhaps,
Garrock began, choosing his words carefully.
Perhaps you could explain this uplifting program in more detail, for clarity.
Ethar's back straightened slightly, a sign of surprise or satisfaction. Garrock couldn't tell which.
A sensible request. The history of how Earth came to produce 3 apex warrior species is illuminating.
The screen shifted again, displaying an ancient galactic council chamber with representatives from dozens of species, engaged in what appeared to be heated debate. Garrock settled back, his mind racing. If what Ethar claimed was true, his clan's raid plans would need significant reconsideration. But first, he needed to understand exactly what they would be facing. As the blue-skinned Lodarian began his explanation, Garrock listened with an intensity that would have surprised his clan members. A warrior who didn't gather intelligence before battle was merely offering himself as a sacrifice. And Garrock had no intention of becoming a sacrifice, especially not to creatures evolved from what humans had once kept as pets.
For 12,000 galactic standard years, the Council has selectively uplifted species that showed promise.
Ethar began, his melodic voice taking on the cadence of a lecturer.
Baseline intelligence, cooperation, ethical development, these were the criteria.
My people were never uplifted,
Garrock growled, feeling the familiar sting of exclusion that had driven his clan's raids for generations. Ethar regarded him coolly.
Yes, there were concerns about your species' fixation on combat prowess as the sole measure of worth.
As there should be,
Garrock replied with a surge of pride, his tusks juttering forward as he straightened. Only the weak sought to separate prowess in battle from worth.
The program was designed to bring balance to the galaxy,
Ethar continued, seemingly unperturbed by Garrock's interpretation.
New perspectives, new approaches to shared problems, until Earth.
The screen shifted to show a blue-green planet swirled with white clouds. Earth, Garrock presumed. The image zoomed in, displaying primitive dwellings and early human civilizations alongside various fur-covered creatures of different sizes.
When the Council scouts first observed Earth, they were interested only in humans,
Ethar explained.
But they discovered something unprecedented. Humans had already begun modifying their companion species. Crude genetic manipulation, selective breeding, rudimentary language training.
They were creating weapons,
Gorok interjected, understanding dawning. Even primitives recognized the need for superior combat capabilities. The blue-skinned interrogator shook his head, his ears swaying with the motion.
They were creating family, Gorok. The distinction is important.
Ethar's golden eyes seemed to intensify as he leaned forward slightly.
Humans didn't see themselves as separate from these other species. They saw potential. The Council made a fateful decision. Rather than stop this process, they would guide it.
The screen displayed what appeared to be Council scientists working alongside humans. Genetic sequences floating between them as they manipulated holographic representations of the creatures Gorok, now recognized as early Kateri and Luperi.
The standard uplifting protocol requires centuries of graduated genetic enhancement, cognitive expansion, and careful sociological integration, Ethar said. But Earth's situation demanded innovation. The companion species had already developed proto-sentient characteristics through their association with humans. Their neural pathways had been shaped by millennia of co-evolution.
Gorok watched the accelerated footage showing the transformation of the small creatures into the bipedal, tool-using beings he'd seen in the earlier combat footage.
How long did this take?
3 generations,
Ethar replied.
The most rapid uplifting in Council history, and the last of its kind.
The screen now displayed 3 distinct evolutionary paths, branching from the initial uplift. The human path showed their development of balanced technological and diplomatic capabilities. The Kateri path illustrated their refinement of stealth technologies and precision combat systems. The Luperi path demonstrated their evolution of pack-based military structures and communication networks.
Each species developed according to their inherent traits,
Ethar explained.
Humans maintained their nature, becoming generalists with particular skill in tool use and technology. The Katari cultivated their natural hunting instincts, developing unparalleled covert operation capabilities. The Luperi expanded their pack mentality into sophisticated military hierarchies with communication systems that even Council cryptographers cannot fully decode.
Gorok shifted in his seat, the restraints adjusting automatically.
These are impressive developments, but many species have evolved formidable capabilities. Why should Earth's trio cause such concern?
An astute question.
Ethar smiled in what might have been approval.
The answer lies not in their individual capabilities, but in their integration.
The screen shifted to display footage that made even Gorok's warrior blood run cold. A coordinated assault by all 3 Earth species against what appeared to be a vastly superior force, in numbers and technology, of insectoid warriors Gorok recognized as the dreaded Hive Mind Collective.
Within 1 galactic standard decade of Earth's species joining interstellar society, 17 conflicts had been resolved by their intervention,
Ethar said, gesturing to the footage.
The Hive Mind Collective withdrew territorial claims after a single demonstration of Katari infiltration capabilities. The Draconis hegemony sued for peace after Luperi pack ships surrounded their homeworld.
You make them sound invincible,
Gorok muttered, his tactical mind already calculating possible weaknesses in what he was witnessing.
Not invincibility,
Ethar corrected.
Simply more dangerous than any raiding party should willingly provoke.
He tapped his wrist device, and the screen changed to show a formal council session, far more somber than the heated debate from earlier.
The council immediately passed the Multiple Sentience Restriction Act. Never again would more than one species from a planet be uplifted. But the damage was done.
Gorok leaned forward as much as his restraints would allow.
But they fight amongst themselves, yes? All species do. We could exploit divisions, target the weakest individually.
Ethar activated footage of a formal ceremony.
This is the signing of the Terror Pact. Notice the representatives, human, Qatari, and Luperi.
The screen showed 3 figures, dramatically different in appearance, but standing with unmistakable unity.
3 species, 1 origin, 1 defensive agreement. They argue, they compete, they occasionally engage in limited conflicts. But when their homeworld is threatened...
Ethar paused the footage as all 3 representatives clasped hands and paused in a triangular formation.
They responded as one.
A subtle vibration ran through the floor of the interrogation room, just strong enough to break Gorok's concentration. He wondered if it was intentional, another psychological tactic from his captor.
All warriors respect strength,
Gorok said, quieter now.
We would take what we need and offer tribute later to acknowledge their power. Many species have accepted such arrangements.
That might satisfy the humans, Ethar conceded. It would not satisfy the others.
The screen shifted again, displaying what appeared to be historical records of interactions with Earth species. Gorok noted diplomatic exchanges, trade agreements, even military alliances, but also devastating punitive actions against aggressors.
Humans operate on concepts of honor and reconciliation that are at least comprehensible to most species,
Ethar continued.
The Luperi function through a rigid code of pack loyalty and territorial defense that, while severe, is predictable. The Qatari, however...
He paused, his golden eyes fixing on Gorok.
The Qatari do not forgive, they do not forget, and they do not recognize proportional response.
Footage appeared of what had once been a flourishing civilization. Gorok didn't recognize the species, but the architecture suggested a highly advanced culture. The next images showed the same world reduced to ruins, with small furry figures methodically moving through the devastation.
The Mevic hegemony,
Ethar explained.
They abducted 3 Qatari kittens. When diplomatic efforts for their return failed, the Qatari responded. Not immediately. They waited nearly 30 years, when the Mevic had forgotten the incident entirely.
Gorok watched as the footage showed the dismantling of an entire civilization, infrastructure targeted with precision, leadership assassinated in ways that maximized terror and confusion, defense systems compromised from within.
The council attempted to intervene,
Ethar continued, his voice lower now.
The Qatari representative simply stated, "They took our children, we take their future." By the time the council organized a peacekeeping force, the Mevic had surrendered unconditionally.
A chill ran down Gorok's spine. His clan valued victory through superior strength, overwhelming force applied directly. There was no honor in the cold calculation he was witnessing, but there was undeniable effectiveness.
And your clan's planned raid would take you directly into territories the Qatari consider their ancestral hunting grounds,
Ethar added. The statement hung in the air like a death sentence. Garok felt the first genuine flicker of uncertainty. Not fear, warriors did not fear, but tactical reassessment.
The Lupiri, you said they operate on pack loyalty. Could diplomatic overtures?
The Lupiri would follow protocols for enemy engagement,
Ethar interjected.
but their definition of enemy is absolute once aggression is established. They do not recognize graduated response like humans do. An attack on their territory is an attack on their pack, and pack defense supersedes all other considerations.
The screen now showed Lupiri warships surrounding a planet, their formations organized like one. A countdown appeared in the corner of the screen, while the surrounded planet's defense systems fired uselessly against the coordinated Lupiri vessels.
The Sadari thought their planetary defense grid was impenetrable,
Ethar said softly.
The Lupiri gave them exactly one planetary rotation to surrender. After an unprovoked attack on a Lupiri science vessel, when the deadline expired...
He didn't need to continue as the footage showed the neutralization of every defense emplacement, followed by strikes against military installations.
They spared civilian targets,
Garok observed, watching the careful navigation of the Lupiri ships around non-military infrastructure.
Yes, the Lupiri are not vindictive. They eliminate threats and keep minimum collateral damage.
Ethar's ears swayed gently.
They would target your clan's military capabilities, your leadership structure, and ensure you could never pose a threat again.
Garok felt his heart beating faster. Though he kept his expression impassive, his clan had survived by raiding just below the threshold that would trigger full retaliation from their victims. They took technology, resources, occasionally captives, but always calculated the cost-benefit of each raid carefully. What Ethar described offered no such calculation. It was binary. Attack and be destroyed, or do not attack.
And humans?
Garok asked, seeking any potential weakness in this triad of threats.
You said they might accept tribute. Perhaps formal diplomatic recognition of their superiority would.
Humans are the most unpredictable element,
Ethar interrupted, the screen shifting to display various human responses to aggression throughout their interstellar history.
They have accepted surrender from species that the Qatari would have eradicated. They have established trade relations with former enemies that the Lupiri would have permanently neutralized. But they have also completely destroyed aggressors in certain situations.
The images showed humans engaged in both peace negotiations and devastating military campaigns, oscillating between mercy and ruthlessness in ways that seemed to follow no discernible pattern.
What determines their response?
Garok asked, genuinely curious.
Intent,
Ethar replied.
Humans place extraordinary emphasis on the motivation behind actions. An attack motivated by desperation might be forgiven. An attack motivated by contempt...
He gestured to footage of a human fleet reducing a planetary defense system to debris.
Less so.
Garok recalled his earlier dismissal of humans as soft-skinned weaklings, and felt an unfamiliar twinge of discomfort. His clan's raid plans included specific references to the inferiority of the target species, a standard morale-building tactic that now seemed potentially catastrophic.
The three species also influence each other's responses,
Ethar continued.
Humans moderate the Qatari's vindictiveness with the Lupiri's absolutism. In return, the Qatari prevent humans from extending too much trust, while the Lupiri, they simply offer their eternal loyalty.
The screen displayed a complex network of interactions between the three species, their governmental structures, military commands, and diplomatic corps all interlinked in ways that Gorok found difficult to follow.
They are allies,
he said slowly, the tactical implications becoming clearer. Where one species might have exploitable weakness, the other compensated.
Precisely,
Ethar confirmed, his golden eyes seeming to brighten.
The Council's greatest concern after the uplifting was not that Earth would produce three powerful species, but that they would function as a single, integrated force multiplier, which is exactly what happened.
Gorok fell silent, absorbing this information. His clan's raid plans had focused on Earth's technological advantages, propulsion systems more efficient than anything his species had developed, weapons targeting systems of unprecedented accuracy, shield generators that could withstand sustained energy weapon bombardment. They had prepared contingencies for human military response, but had no intelligence on these other species or their integrated defense capabilities. The room's subtle vibrations increased momentarily, then settled back into their irregular pattern. Gorok wondered if it corresponded to Ethar's emotional state, or if it was simply another disorientation tactic.
I have provided this information because the Council prefers to avoid unnecessary conflict,
Ethar said, his voice taking on a more formal tone.
Your clan's raid plans were detected by routine surveillance. Rather than allow events to proceed in their inevitable conclusion, intervention was deemed appropriate.
Intervention?
Gorok repeated, glancing meaningfully at his restraints.
Is that what this is?
For the first time, Ethar's expression showed something approaching emotion. A slight furrow in his smooth blue forehead, a momentary narrowing of those golden eyes.
You still don't understand, do you?
The Lodarian's voice had lost some of its melodic quality, taking on a sharper edge.
These restraints, this room, this entire conversation, none of it is what you believe it to be.
The flat screen behind Ethar flickered, the image changing to a devastating world that Gorok recognized with a shock of horror. It was his species' homeworld, or rather, a simulation of what it would become if the Qatari implemented one of their generational vendettas against his people.
What is this?
Gorok demanded, genuine alarm creeping into his voice for the first time.
Reality,
Ethar replied, rising from his seat with fluid grace.
Or rather, a potential reality that I am trying to prevent.
Gorok strained against his restraints, his muscles bulging as though sheer physical strength could somehow dispel the horrific images on the screen. The simulation showed his homeworld, its sprawling desert cities reduced to rubble, the ancient clan territories marked with radiation warnings, the orbital shipyards drifting as debris.
This is manipulation,
he snarled, baring his tusks at Ethar.
Psychological warfare. I will not be broken by false images.
Ethar paced now, his earlier stillness replaced by frustration.
I've shown you the military capabilities of 3 species. I've shown you the historical records of failed attacks. I've explained the defensive pact that unites them. What part of this are you failing to comprehend?
My ancestors have raided worlds for 10,000 cycles,
Gorok countered, falling back on the certainty of tradition.
It is our way.
Your ancestors never encountered anything like Earth's defenders.
Ethar's voice rose slightly, his ears moving with agitation.
This isn't about tradition, Gorok. This is about survival.
A warrior who fears battle has already lost.
The words came automatically, drilled into Gorok since childhood. Ethar stopped pacing abruptly and stared directly at Gorok, his eyes narrowing.
Then I've been approaching this all wrong.
Slowly, Ethar reached for his uniform and removed a badge. Not the Galactic Council enforcement insignia Gorok had assumed he wore, but something different. He placed it on the table between them. It showed a DNA strand circled by protective hands.
I am not who you think I am, Gorok,
Ethar said quietly.
I don't work for the Council's enforcement division.
Confusion rippled through Gorok.
Then who?
I represent the Species Conservation Initiative. We identify species at risk of extinction and intervene where possible.
Ethar gestured to the badge.
You weren't detained to protect Earth or any of its species. You were detained to protect the continued existence of your species.
Gorok growled, though the sound lacked his earlier conviction.
We need no protection. We are warriors.
That's precisely why you need protection,
Ethar replied.
From yourselves.
Gorok studied the blue-skinned being before him with new eyes. Not a jailer, then. Something else. Something that didn't align with any concept in his warrior's understanding of the universe.
Let me be absolutely clear about what would happen if your raid proceeded,
Ethar continued, his voice taking on a clinical precision.
The humans would detect your approach before you entered their system. They would likely offer one chance to retreat.
We would not take it,
Gorok stated, though with less certainty than before.
I know. Upon engagement, the Lupiri would coordinate the defense response. If you somehow survived that, the humans might accept your surrender. They can be merciful, especially if they determine your actions were based on cultural imperatives rather than malice.
We would not surrender.
This time the words sounded hollow even to Gorok's ears.
Again, I know.
Ethar's voice softened slightly.
Which brings us to the Qatari.
The small ones,
Gorok said, shifting uncomfortably in his restraints.
The vengeful ones.
Ethar leaned forward, his golden eyes intent.
They would take your attack on their homeworld personally. They would identify your species, your clan structures, your homeworld, and then, methodically, over whatever time span necessary, they would ensure your complete extinction.
A chill ran down Gorok's spine despite the room's carefully regulated temperature.
And they wouldn't just kill you,
Ethar added, his voice lowering.
What do you mean?
Gorok found himself leaning forward, drawn in despite his resistance.
They would play with you first, make you suffer.
Ethar's hands lay flat against his head, a sign of discomfort.
I'm not being racist here, but the orange ones never kill fast. They derive pleasure from the hunt, from watching their prey realize slowly that there is no escape.
The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls closer. Gorok had witnessed torture, had even participated in it during particularly contentious raids, but always as a means to an end. Information extraction, primarily. The casual cruelty Ether described was different, alien.
The Qatari were formidable hunters before uplifting,
Ethar continued.
Their natural predatory instincts were enhanced by sentience, not replaced by it. They retained their evolutionary tendencies to toy with prey, but added psychological dimensions that make it infinitely more refined.
Gorok recalled the footage of the Qatari military exercises, the precise, patient movements. He had seen them as merely efficient fighters. Now he recognized the predatory calculation behind each action.
"Why are you telling me this?" he demanded. "If I am truly detained for my own protection, why not simply hold me until my clan abandons their plans?"
Ether tapped his wrist device, and the restraints on Garok's wrists powered down at once. They remained locked, but the energy that had prevented his movement was gone.
"You haven't even attacked Earth yet, but I am already authorized to offer you sanctuary,"
Ether said, ignoring Garok's stunned expression.
"Your biological data would be altered in all accessible databases. Your clan would be relocated to a protected world beyond the reach of even Qatari intelligence networks."
Garok stared at the now inert restraints. He could break them with minimal effort. A simple wrist rotation would shatter the depowered locks. Ether was well within striking distance. The door, well, he wasn't sure where the door was in the seamless walls, but he could find it.
"And if I refuse?"
Garok asked, making no move to break free.
"If I return to lead my clan in glorious battle?"
"Then I record your decision, release you, and file the preliminary extinction documentation for your species."
Ether's voice was quiet, almost gentle.
"The average time between a Qatari vendetta declaration and species extinction is 47 galactic standard years. They are thorough."
Silence fell between them, broken only by the subtle vibrations that crossed through the room's floor.
"You truly believe we cannot win?"
Garok said finally.
"I truly believe you cannot survive losing," Ether corrected. "There's a difference."
Garok looked down at the restraints on his wrists. Understanding dawned slowly. Then, all at once,
"These were never meant to keep me contained," he said. "They were to make me believe I was a prisoner while you tried to save me."
Ether nodded.
"Conservation sometimes requires deception. What is your choice, Garok?"
The question was hard. Garok's mind raced through alternatives, consequences. His clan expected him to return with final reconnaissance of their raid. The rest of their species wouldn't forgive them if they didn't. The glory that awaited successful warriors in the ancestral beyond would be denied to those who fled from battle. Generations of tradition demanded he led his warriors against any foe, regardless of the odds. But the primary duty of any clan leader was survival, not just personal survival, but the survival of the clan itself, of the species.
"If we were relocated," he began slowly, "would we be permitted to maintain our cultural practices, our warrior traditions?"
"Within parameters that don't threaten other sentient species, yes," Ether replied. "The Krava, perhaps you've heard of them, now host the quadrennial combat excellence trials, after making a similar choice. Their martial traditions not only survived, but have influenced dozens of other species."
Garok's eyes widened tightly. The legendary Krathva had vanished from galactic affairs 3 generations ago, amid rumors of catastrophic defeat. Never had he considered they might have chosen relocation. The restraints fell away with a click. Garok stood, towering over the slender Lodarian, suddenly aware that what he'd believed was imprisonment had always been protection. The universe was more complex and more dangerous than his warrior culture had prepared him for.
"I will return to my clan,"
he said finally, his voice firm but carrying a new undertone of humility.
"Need time to think."
Ether nodded, his eyes reflecting something like respect.
"A warrior knows when to fight," he said, "but the greatest warriors know when not to."
As Garok reached the doorway that had appeared in the seamless wall, he froze at the threshold. Centuries of warrior doctrine warring with the undeniable evidence before him. Attack and achieve legendary status in clan history, even as that history ended. Or retreat and bear the shame of caution. As Ethar's door sealed behind him, Garrock identified the unfamiliar sensation tightening his chest. For the first time in his life, a warrior knew fear, and recognized it as wisdom. Perhaps, he thought, Earth was best left alone.